across continents, across decades. Different places, different people, yet one thing connects them all. There was no rational explanation. These stories were investigated, documented, and still defy all logic. From disappearances without a trace, to events captured on video that experts still can't explain, to cases where entire towns witnessed something they were never supposed to see. Welcome to Horror Diaries, where every story is real and every whisper is true. Relax, turn off the lights as we delve in. Before we start, please press the subscribe button and like this video. Also, where are you from? And what time are you watching? Here comes the stories.
The Yuba County Five. The boys who walked into the mountains and never returned. 5 men disappeared in the snow, and what investigators found later didn't make sense at all. On the night of February 24, 1978, 5 young men from Yuba County, California, Bill, Jack, Ted, Gary, and Jackie, attended a college basketball game. They were all close friends, all in their 20s and early 30s, and all had mild developmental challenges. Their families described them as responsible, gentle, routine-driven, and absolutely terrified of the cold. But after that basketball game, everything took a turn no one can explain. The last sighting. At 10 p.m., they stopped at a gas station to buy snacks for the drive home. They were laughing, joking, and excited for an upcoming Special Olympics event they were supposed to play in the next morning. But the next day, they didn't show up, and their families knew immediately, instantly, that something was wrong. These boys never missed events, never broke routine, never wandered. A search began the same day. Hours later, investigators found their car, an old turquoise Mercury Montego, abandoned in the Plumas National Forest, more than 70 miles away from home. There was no reason for them to be there. They hated the cold, they hated the mountains, and none of them knew the area. Inside the car, something was strange. The keys were missing. The car was unlocked, but the car still worked perfectly, and the snacks they bought were still inside, untouched. It looked like they left the car willingly. But why? The police believed they got lost, but the families insisted they wouldn't leave the car. They would stay together, they would wait, but they didn't. The first body months passed, snow melted. On June 4th, a group of forest workers noticed a broken window at a remote trailer 20 miles from the abandoned car. Inside, they found the body of Ted, lying peacefully on a bed, completely wrapped in blankets from head to toe. Here's the part no one can explain. Ted had survived for up to 13 weeks. The trailer had food, fuel, matches, and everything he needed, but none of it was used. There were dozens of sealed cans of food in a storeroom, untouched. There were winter clothes, untouched. There was heating, untouched. Ted starved and froze to death in a cabin stocked with supplies. Why didn't he eat? Why didn't he light a fire? Why didn't he seek help? Investigators still don't know. More discoveries. 2 days later, search teams found the remains of Jack and Bill closer to the mountain road, as if they had collapsed while trying to go back toward the car. Another body, later identified as Jackie, was found further downhill. But the strangest part, Gary, the 5th man, was never found. Not a bone, not a piece of clothing, nothing. Some believe he died far from the others. Others think he might have wandered off into a different direction. But many people still believe something else happened. What do you think happened to the missing man? And why didn't the others use the food, clothing, and heat inside the cabin? What would you have done in that situation? Comment your theories today. More than 45 years have passed. Family members still visit the mountain every year, leaving flowers where the men were found. Search teams still occasionally explore the area, hoping to find Gary's remains. But the forest keeps its secrets, and every investigator who studies this case says the same thing. Nothing about it makes sense. Everything they did was opposite of what they should have done. 5 men drove into the mountains that night. 4 were found in places they should never have been. 1 vanished into silence. The truth behind the Yuba County 5 remains, to this day, one of the most haunting mysteries in America. The end to the next mystery. The smiley face murders, the men who went missing and returned too late. If over 40 people disappear the same way, in different cities, is it still an accident? For more than 2 decades, young men across the United States have vanished after nights out, only to be found days or weeks later in rivers, lakes, or frozen water. Police called them drownings, families called them accidents. But a group of retired detectives believed something else. Serial killers, plural, were hunting these men and leaving behind a chilling signature. A smiley face graffiti, spray paint, drawn near the places where bodies were found. And the deeper investigators dug, the more terrifying the pattern became. The first patterns. The earliest cases began in the late 1990s. Bright, athletic young men, mostly ages 19 to 24, would go out drinking with friends. They'd step outside for a moment, or leave a bar alone, and vanish. Weeks later, the same thing. Their bodies were found in water, fully clothed, often with no water in their lungs, meaning many of them didn't drown, they were already dead. One victim was Patrick McNeil, a college student in New York. Witnesses saw him leaving a bar, stumbling slightly, not drunk enough to collapse, not unstable enough to fall, but he never made it home. His body was found in the East River. Another victim, Chris Jenkins, a college student in Minnesota, disappeared on Halloween night. His body was found months later, frozen in the Mississippi River, still wearing his Halloween costume. Doctors found no water in his lungs, and his hands were neatly folded, as if placed that way. Near the riverbank where he was found, spray painted on a wall, a smiley face. The smiley face theory. In 2008, retired NYPD detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte announced a disturbing possibility. More than 40 deaths across 11 different states shared the same signature. A young man disappears at night. His phone dies or goes silent. No CCTV shows him entering water. His body is found weeks later. The death is ruled an accident, and near the recovery site. A smiley face painted somewhere nearby. Law enforcement dismissed the theory. They said the cases were coincidences, but the detectives insisted this was organized, coordinated and deliberate, a killing network. The case of Tommy. One of the most disturbing cases was the disappearance of Tommy Booth in Pennsylvania. Tommy was out celebrating a friend's birthday. He stepped outside the bar for a moment. Security cameras captured him pacing, looking uncomfortable, as if someone was watching him. Minutes later, he vanished. 2 weeks passed. When his body was finally found in a shallow creek, the medical examiner recorded something unusual. Tommy's body was found lying face up, in water too shallow to drown in. His arms were crossed, his hair was neatly brushed, and behind the bar where he disappeared, a smiley face painted under a bridge. Police said he drowned. The detectives said he didn't. Do you believe these cases are connected, or do you think they're coincidences? If dozens of men vanish the same way in different states, what would you think? Comment below. Strange similarities. Across the 20-year pattern, the victims shared eerie similarities. All were described as athletic, popular, well-liked. All vanished at night after leaving friends. Many left their drinks unattended before disappearing. Some had traces of GHB or other sedatives. Several had unexplained bruises or marks. None were dressed for water when found, and the most chilling detail, most were excellent swimmers. Even in cold water, even in winter, they should have survived long enough to be seen or heard. But they didn't. They simply vanished. The unsolved ending. To this day, the smiley face murder theory remains controversial. Officially, none of the deaths are connected. But families, private investigators, and independent researchers insist the pattern is too strong to ignore. The smiley faces left behind may not be a signature. They might be a message. We're still out here. And the fact that the victims appeared staged, placed gently, arranged, folded, suggests these were not drunken accidents, but something organized, something planned, something sinister, something that still hasn't been caught. Many detectives who work the cases believe there are multiple killers operating independently but following the same method, a dark online network or a hidden group with a shared ritual. Whatever the truth is, the smiley face murders remain one of America's most disturbing, unsolved horror cases. Dozens of young men, dozens of rivers, dozens of smiling faces, And no arrests, no answers, only fear, and a pattern that refuses to disappear. The end to the next mystery. The man who walked out of a hospital and vanished. He walked out of the hospital on camera, clear recorded proof. But the moment he passed the final exit door, he disappeared into thin air. On the night of March 18, 2007, 32-year-old Anthony Ruiz was admitted to St. John's Hospital in Santa Fe after collapsing at work. Doctors suspected a mild concussion. He was alert, talking, and expected to be discharged the next morning. But what happened just after midnight has become one of the most baffling real-life disappearances in modern history. At 12:17 a.m., Anthony got up from his bed. Nurses reported nothing unusual. He wasn't confused. He wasn't agitated. He simply said, "I need some fresh air." Security cameras captured Anthony walking calmly down the hallway, wearing hospital socks, a thin gown, and nothing else. He pushed through the double doors leading to the lobby. Then he walked toward the main exit. Camera number 5 showed him step outside into the dimly lit parking lot. But here's the mystery. Camera number 6, positioned directly outside that same exit, never recorded him coming out. One frame, he's approaching the door from inside. The next frame, nothing. Anthony was gone. Security assumed a blind spot glitch, but when they reviewed the footage again, the transition was seamless. He didn't turn around, he didn't step aside, he didn't go back inside. He simply vanished between one camera and the next. Police were called within the hour. Officers scoured the parking lot, nearby streets, dumpsters, wooded areas, drainage tunnels. Nothing. There were no footprints in the snow. No signs of struggle, no dropped clothing, no witnesses. If you were the investigator, what would you think happened here? Would you assume he slipped into a blind spot, or would you believe something far stranger occurred? The next day, police pulled footage from surrounding buildings. A gas station, a grocery store, 3 traffic cameras. Not a single recording showed Anthony. Search dogs were brought in. But here's the chilling part. The dogs followed his scent to the exit door. And then the scent stopped completely, as if he vanished mid-step. Tracking dogs do not just lose a scent instantly. Not unless the person left the ground by unnatural means or was sealed in an airtight container. Neither option made sense. Over the next few days, investigators interviewed every patient, nurse, janitor, and security guard. No suspicious figures, no vehicles speeding away, no one matching his description leaving on foot. Anthony's family offered a reward. Flyers were posted across the city. National news picked up the story. But weeks turned into months. Then a strange detail emerged. A nurse remembered something small, almost insignificant. She recalled Anthony asking her earlier that night, "Have you ever felt like someone is calling your name when no one is around?" She brushed it off as a symptom of his concussion. But Anthony's brother later revealed that Anthony had complained for weeks about hearing someone whisper his name, usually late at night. A voice he couldn't describe, a voice he said didn't sound human. Was it hallucination, stress, a medical condition? No doctor ever found an explanation. In 2012, 5 years after his disappearance, a hiker 11 miles from the hospital reported hearing a man's voice yelling for help deep in a canyon. Search teams investigated but found nothing. In 2019, a woman claimed she saw a man matching Anthony's description walking barefoot along an empty highway at dawn. The man didn't respond when she called out. By the time she pulled her car over, he had vanished. Every sighting was unconfirmed, every lead collapsed. And then, one more chilling detail. 2 weeks before he disappeared, Anthony told his co-worker something eerie. "I keep dreaming that I'm walking through a doorway that leads nowhere. I open it, and then everything goes black. A doorway that leads nowhere." A camera transition where he vanishes at the exact moment he passes through a doorway. Coincidence or something far stranger? Engagement prompt, what do you think? Did Anthony walk into a blind spot? Or did he walk into something we don't understand? If this happened to someone you knew, what would you believe? To this day, Anthony Ruiz has never been found. No remains, no belongings, no confirmed sightings. It is one of the few documented cases where video footage shows a man seconds before disappearing, with no trace left behind. And the final recording of Anthony, his calm walk toward the exit, remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries caught on camera. The end to the next mystery. The disappearance of the missionary pilot. His plane vanished less than 2 minutes after takeoff, and for 40 years, search teams have never found a single piece. No debris, no oil, no body, nothing. On the morning of October 16, 1972, missionary pilot Maurice "Mo" Chalice prepared for what should have been a routine flight over the dense jungles of Papua New Guinea. The weather was clear, his fuel tank was full, and he was an experienced bush pilot who knew the terrain better than most. He radioed base camp at 8:12 a.m., saying only 2 words: taking off. That was the last anyone heard from him. For decades, investigators have tried to solve what happened to Mo, and why a plane could disappear in broad daylight without leaving a trace. But what happened next remains one of the strangest aviation mysteries ever documented. Mo's takeoff was witnessed by 6 missionaries on the ground. They watched his small aircraft lift smoothly into the air. It climbed normally, banking left into a valley he'd flown through hundreds of times. But when colleagues attempted to reach him 2 minutes later, radio silence. At first, no one panicked. It wasn't unusual for radios to fail briefly in mountainous regions. But when Mo didn't respond after 20 minutes, the alarm was raised. By noon, a full search operation was launched. The search lasted 32 days. It covered more than 900 square miles of jungle, ridges, rivers, and remote terrain. Yet not a single shred of wreckage was ever found. No broken wings, no scattered luggage, no oil trail on the river, no sign of fire, nothing. Even stranger, Mo's flight path was short. He was supposed to land at a village only 12 minutes away. Investigators calculated that the plane could not have traveled beyond the mapped search area unless something forced it drastically off course. But there were no storm systems, no recorded downdrafts, no unexpected winds. So what happened? Some claimed the plane may have crashed into a mountain and was swallowed by jungle canopy. But search helicopters flew so low that leaves were blown off trees. They saw everything except Mo's aircraft. Others proposed mechanical failure, but even then, something should have been recovered. In 1985, a second search team was sent after a hunter claimed he found a plane wing deep in a swamp. His coordinates were recorded, and yet again, nothing was there. Then came the more chilling theory. A missionary living in the same region reported a strange story from a local tribe. According to their oral history, a metal bird fell from the sky around the early 1970s. The tribe said they heard a loud roar followed by silence. When they tried to investigate, they claimed the jungle swallowed the object. Researchers tried to follow this lead, but the tribe's description of the location was vague, and thick vegetation made exploration nearly impossible. But one detail stood out. The tribe claimed the object was taken back by the sky. Was this a metaphor, a mistranslation? Or did they witness something no one could explain? Decades later, in 2010, satellite scans were used to survey the region. They identified 2 areas with metallic signatures, but ground teams were unable to reach the spots due to dangerous cliffs and impassable rainforest. To this day, Mo Chalice's plane remains missing, one of the only bush aircraft in the region's history to vanish without leaving any evidence behind. Every year, new expedition groups attempt to solve the mystery, and every year they come back empty-handed. But here's the detail that bothers investigators the most. Mo was known for one habit. He always carried an emergency flare strapped to his leg. If he had survived a crash, even for a short time, he would have used it. But no flare was ever spotted. Not by air, not by land, not by satellite. What do you think happened to Mo? Do you think the plane is still somewhere deep in the jungle, hidden from the world? Or do you believe something else took him? If it were you searching, where would you begin? Some believe the rainforest simply concealed the crash forever. Others think mechanical failure made the plane dive into a river and sink instantly. A few believe weather changes created a microburst strong enough to push the plane down. But then, there are those who believe Mo flew into something he couldn't explain. Something that made the aircraft vanish so completely that even modern technology cannot locate it. A disappearance with no wreckage is rare. A disappearance with no evidence at all is nearly impossible. And that's why Mo's final flight remains one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in aviation history. The end to the last mystery. The vanishing train of Roxborough. It was scheduled to arrive at 10:15 p.m., but when the signal tower called, the train had disappeared. No tracks, no wreckage, and no passengers, just gone. On March 12, 1962, the Roxborough Express departed from London, carrying 110 passengers and 12 crew members. It was a regular night train, following the same route it had for years, through quiet countryside, small villages, and lightly forested areas. Everything seemed normal until the train approached the Roxborough signal tower, where it was supposed to report its position at 10:15 p.m. The operator tried calling the train. No response. Minutes later, the central control attempted to contact the conductor. No one answered. Within half an hour, authorities launched a full-scale search. They expected to find a derailment, a signal failure, or an accident caused by severe weather, but nothing explained it. Search began. Aerial reconnaissance and ground teams combed the tracks for miles. Every kilometer of railway was inspected. Rail workers verified track integrity. There were no breaks, no derailments, and no anomalies. The train's route passed through farmland, forests, and a small river crossing. Investigators expected to find debris, luggage, or at least some passengers. Nothing. No footprints along embankments, no tracks near rivers, no reports from nearby towns, no sightings of the train leaving the route. Even stranger, the railway signals showed the train had passed each checkpoint on time, yet no one saw it. If a train could vanish without a trace, how would you explain it? Mechanical failure, human error, or something far stranger? Railway officials initially considered human error or a scheduling mistake, but they quickly ruled it out. The train had been fully staffed. Signals confirmed it left London at 9 p.m. and reported positions along the route. Local villagers claimed to have heard the train whistle in the distance, but saw no lights on the tracks. A few claimed they glimpsed the train passing through the forest at high speed. But when they tried to follow, there were only trees. No tracks, nothing. Investigators inspected the engines and carriages left behind in London's yard. They were all operational and accounted for. No trains were missing from the depot, except the one that supposedly vanished. Strange witnesses. 2 farmers reported seeing the train approach at a speed impossible for a passenger train. They described the lights as dim, flickering, and the wheels not touching the rails. A third witness, a signal tower worker, swore he saw the train enter the Roxborough curve and fade into a shimmering mist, then vanish completely. He fainted shortly afterward and later described the memory as burned into his mind. Weeks later, railway workers examined the tracks. Everything appeared normal, except for a stretch of track near the Roxborough bend, where the ballast seemed slightly disturbed, as if a heavy object had passed through, but no depressions matched the size of a train. Theories: 1. Mechanical malfunction, accident impossible, as the tracks were intact and no debris was found. 2. Sabbatical or sabotage, authorities considered sabotage by political groups or disgruntled railway employees. No evidence supported this. Paranormal, temporal anomaly. Some researchers later suggested the train may have entered a temporal rift or experienced a sudden phenomenon that removed it from conventional space. 4. Mass abduction, conspiracy. A few theorists claimed government or military experiments involving the train and its passengers. The claims are unverified, but persisted due to the complete lack of evidence. Would you board a train tonight if you knew another vanished the same way? Could this be a glitch in time or just a legend? The official report concluded the train and its 110 passengers were missing under unknown circumstances. No insurance claims were paid. Families were left without closure. Subsequent investigations revealed no trace of passengers anywhere in the country. Not a single call, note, or sighting. Locals reported that trains on the same line sometimes seemed to slow, flicker, or appear for a few seconds before disappearing, a phenomenon dubbed the Roxborough blink. Rail historians now record the disappearance as one of the most baffling railway mysteries in Europe. Even today, books and documentaries explore the case, yet no definitive explanation exists. Some say the train was caught in a temporary spatial anomaly. Others argue a government cover-up. The Roxborough Express remains missing. The signal tower, tracks, and stations are unchanged. Yet the haunting legend persists that at night, if you listen closely, you may hear the whistle of a train that no one ever boarded, or a train that no one can ever find.
Comment below, which story kept you up tonight? I'm reading every single one. If you made it this far, you're one of the brave ones. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because more true horror drops every night. Sleep, if you can.